It actually has very little to do with courage at first. It's really it's kind of a life or death kind of situation. So what saved me was finally getting a little bit of clarity in my life.
I have never been married.
Well, I gotta tell you.
Yes.
When you reach that age, you've never been married, it's probably not gonna happen.
The life and untold tragic fate of Matthew Perry from Friends. He was known for his quick wit and infectious laughter, but behind the scenes, Matthew Perry battled a darkness that few truly understood. He was a beloved friend, a talented actor, and a champion for those struggling with addiction. Yet his own demons ultimately claimed his life. Today we delve into the untold story of Matthew Perry, the man behind the iconic character Chandler Bing. We'll uncover the childhood traumas that haunted him, the self-doubt he masked with humor, and the desperate prayers he uttered just weeks before landing his breakout role. Join us as we explore the complexities of his relationships, his lifelong battle with addiction, and the heartbreaking loss that shocked the world. This is a story of laughter, tears, and the resilience of the human spirit. Unfortunate childhood? Matthew Langford Perry entered the world on August 19, 1969. His parents, John and Suzanne, met in 1967 and quickly fall in love with each other. 2 years later, they welcomed their son, but the joy of parenthood was quickly overshadowed by Matthew's constant crying due to colic. Desperate for relief, they turned to a pediatrician who prescribed a powerful sedative for their tiny 1-month-old. Little did they know the lasting impact this would have on their child. While the sedative silenced Matthew's cries, it may have sown the seeds for his later struggles with addiction and sleep problems. The young family's happiness was short-lived, and soon John and Suzanne decided to part ways. Matthew was only 9 months old when his parents went on a 5.5-hour drive to the Canadian border, where they handed him over to his grandfather and said their final goodbyes. John headed to California to pursue his acting dreams, leaving Matthew and his 21-year-old mother to face an uncertain future alone. Despite the challenges, Matthew grew into a kind and considerate child. At 3 years old, a kindergarten accident resulted in the loss of the tip of his middle finger. But instead of crying, he comforted his worried mother, saying, "You don't need to cry, I didn't cry." Even as a small child, Matthew felt a sense of responsibility for his mother's happiness. He became the man of the house, always trying to make her smile and ease her burdens. Despite his bravery after the finger accident, the missing fingertip left him feeling self-conscious for years. But at age 9, a chance encounter on an airplane changed everything. The pilot, noticing Matthew hiding his hand, showed him his own hand with a similar imperfection. Seeing this man, Matthew freed himself from his own insecurities. Meanwhile, Matthew yearned for his mother's attention. Suzanne, a busy press secretary, often had little time for her son. Matthew learned to entertain himself and cope with loneliness, but he craved his mother's love and recognition. He discovered that humor was the best way to capture her attention, and it became his way of connecting with her. Matthew's relationship with his father was complex. Though John was physically absent, his image was ever present in Matthew's life through television and magazines. John was the Old Spice man, a symbol of masculinity and success that Matthew idolized. Their phone calls every Sunday and occasional visits to Los Angeles offered glimpses of a father-son bond. But Matthew still longed for a more permanent connection. He was already craving for love, and another thing happened. His mother, Suzanne, had remarried and was expecting a child. The family moved to Toronto, where Matthew's sister, Caitlin, was born. Despite his love for his baby sister, Matthew felt like an outsider in this seemingly perfect family. His insecurities and struggles made him feel like he didn't belong. This sense of isolation fueled a period of rebellion. Matthew's grades plummeted, he started smoking, and even got into a physical altercation with Justin Trudeau, the future Prime Minister of Canada. Matthew later joked about the incident, saying, "I decided to end my argument with him when he was put in charge of an entire army." When Matthew was in 7th grade, the family moved back to Ottawa. He attended Ashbury College, an all-boys school where he continued to hone his comedic skills. He landed a major role in the school play, The Death and Life of Sneaky Fitch, and discovered a passion for making people laugh. From then on, he participated in every school production, but his mischievous behavior persisted. He stole money, smoked heavily, and struggled academically. Despite his antics, Matthew's athletic achievements offered a glimmer of hope. He was a talented tennis player, training for hours each day and dreaming of Wimbledon glory. He believed that success in tennis would finally earn him the recognition and love he craved from his mother. At 14, Matthew was ranked nationally in Canada, but something else was brewing beneath the surface. A dark cloud was gathering, one that would soon overshadow his dreams of athletic triumph. Addiction at a young age. At 14, Matthew crossed a dangerous threshold. He tried alcohol for the first time. The allure of the bitter liquid had always been present, fueled by movies and TV shows that portrayed happy, smiling people with drinks in hand. One day, while hanging out with his friends, Chris and Brian Murray, they decided to experiment. With no parents around, they found a bottle of wine and 6 beers. The Murray brothers opted for beer, while Matthew chose wine. 15 minutes later, the drinks were gone. Chris and Brian were sick, but Matthew lay on the grass, gazing at the sky, feeling an unfamiliar sense of peace. This was a pivotal moment for Matthew. He discovered that alcohol, at least initially, didn't have the same negative side effects on him as it did on his friends. For 3 blissful hours, his worries vanished. He felt neither abandoned nor lonely. School, family problems, and existential angst faded away. Alcohol became his escape. Surprisingly, this initial experience didn't immediately lead to regular drinking, but the seed was planted. As Matthew matured, he developed an interest in girls, but a traumatic encounter nearly shattered his confidence. A girl he liked suggested taking their relationship further, but Matthew, nervous and having consumed 6 beers beforehand, couldn't perform. This fueled a deep-seated fear of impotence, adding another layer of insecurity to his already troubled mind. Meanwhile, Matthew's family continued to grow with the arrival of another sister, Emily, but his relationship with his mother deteriorated further. Their frequent arguments and his growing dependence on alcohol created a rift between them. Tennis remained his only solace, but even on the court he was plagued by anxiety and tears, even in victory. The constant pressure of tennis, coupled with a yearning for his father, led Matthew to a life-changing decision. He would move to Los Angeles to be closer to John. Both parents agreed, hoping the change would benefit his tennis career and overall well-being. They even considered sending him to the prestigious Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy in Florida. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, Matthew was warmly welcomed by his father, stepmother, and half-sister. They encouraged his passion for tennis, but a harsh reality awaited him. The level of competition in the United States was far more intense than in Canada. Matthew's first and only match in a satellite tournament ended without him scoring a single point, effectively ending his tennis aspirations before they truly began. With his dreams of athletic glory dashed, Matthew had to reevaluate his future. He enrolled in a prestigious private school, where he quickly landed a role in the school play, Our Town. The experience ignited a passion for acting, and he began to consider following in his father's footsteps. When John learned of his son's interest, he simply handed him a book titled Acting with Style, with the inscription, "Another generation shot to hell. Love, Dad." Evenings with his father often involved John drinking vodka and tonic, declaring it the best part of his day. Matthew, as an adult, would develop a fondness for the same drink, but their relationship with alcohol differed significantly. John could seemingly drink heavily without consequence, while Matthew struggled with the after effects. At this point, Matthew was unaware of the devastating impact his growing addiction would have on his life. His father eventually quit drinking cold turkey, a feat that would elude Matthew for many years. The path to sobriety would be a long and arduous one, filled with relapses, rehab stints, therapy sessions, and even a brush with death. But for now, he was a teenager, lost in a maze of insecurities and self-doubt, seeking solace and validation in the pursuit of fame. Stepping into acting, inspired by his father's acting career, Matthew started auditioning for roles. In 1983, he appeared in the comedy series Not Necessarily the News, and 2 years later, he landed a small part in the sitcom Charles in Charge. In 1987, Matthew and his father auditioned together for the TV series Second Chance. Matthew got the part, but his father didn't. This marked a turning point in their relationship. John, despite his own disappointment, supported Matthew's acting career, though he only visited the set once, during the filming of the final episode. At 17, Matthew had his own show and a weekly paycheck of $5,000. A fortune for a teenager. He dropped out of school and embraced the actor's life. His newfound confidence and humor attracted attention, especially from girls. One day, while joking with friends at a cafe, a note was slipped to him inviting him to audition for a movie. The man behind the note was director William Richard, who was casting for his film A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. Matthew landed the role of Fred Roberts, the main character's charming but sexually inexperienced friend. This resonated with Matthew, who still struggled with intimacy issues due to his earlier traumatic experience. On set, Matthew befriended River Phoenix, who played the lead role. They often spent time together after filming, drinking, playing pool, and meeting girls. It was during this time that Matthew met Trisha Fisher, who would become his first girlfriend. By 18, Matthew yearned for intimacy but was still haunted by his past failures. He confided in Trisha, who, instead of being put off, saw it as a challenge. But Trisha understood his fears and helped him cope with self-doubt. Since then, he has never had any problems sexually. As for Trisha, Perry soon ended his relationship with her, but they got back together when Friends were at the peak of popularity. And although nothing good came out of their relationship, Fisher will forever remain the first female star. Despite the short filming duration for A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon, Matthew was allowed to stay in Chicago until the end of production. It was a time of carefree fun and camaraderie. However, upon returning to Los Angeles, reality hit hard. His school grades hadn't improved, and despite countless auditions, success remained elusive. He landed occasional roles in comedy shows, but his big break hadn't arrived yet. At his high school graduation, Matthew's only wish was for his parents to reconcile. It was a brief reunion, but it revealed the deep-seated awkwardness and distance between his parents, confirming the validity of their separation. It would be decades before they shared a room again, under very different circumstances. Meanwhile, Matthew continued his wild lifestyle, partying with friends and drinking heavily. He later joked that he became an expert in two things: 1980s tennis and drinking. But only one of those skills had the potential to save his life. In 1990, he landed a guest role in the popular teen drama Beverly Hills 90210, playing a wealthy tennis star with emotional baggage. This type of character became a recurring theme in his early career. At 22, Matthew was working consistently, but the roles were small and fame remained elusive. That same year, he starred in another sitcom, Sydney, playing the brother of the main character, Valerie Bertinelli. The show was short-lived, but it brought two significant developments in Matthew's life. First, he met Craig Bierko, who would become one of his closest friends. Second, he developed an unrequited crush on his on-screen sister, Valerie. Matthew had always been drawn to unattainable women, and Valerie, married to rock star Eddie Van Halen, fit the bill. His feelings for her made working on the show increasingly difficult. One night, while drinking at the Van Halen's house, Matthew and Valerie shared a kiss while Eddie slept in the next room. Valerie later acted as if nothing had happened. Though their marriage was troubled and eventually ended in divorce, the affair with Matthew never materialized. As Matthew's frivolous lifestyle and lack of financial management caught up with him, his money dwindled and finding work became more challenging. Just when things seemed bleakest, fate intervened, offering him a chance that would change his life forever. Story of Chandler Bing casting. With his financial situation dire, Matthew reached out to his agents, begging for any acting job. He was soon offered a role in the sci-fi comedy LAX 2194 about baggage handlers at Los Angeles International Airport. The pilot episode paid $22,500, enough to keep him afloat for a while. However, around the same time, he came across a script for a new show called Friends Like Us. Reading the script, Matthew felt a profound connection to the character of Chandler Bing. He saw himself in Chandler's witty, self-deprecating humor and relatable struggles. To his dismay, he had signed a contract for LAX 2194 that prevented him from auditioning for other shows. But he couldn't shake the feeling that Chandler was meant for him. Meanwhile, everyone he knew was auditioning for Friends Like Us, often seeking Matthew's advice on how to play Chandler. Even his friend Hank Azaria auditioned twice, though for the role of Joey. He was ultimately cast as David, the scientist Phoebe briefly dates, and even won an Emmy for his performance. Matthew joked, "I did 237 episodes and won nothing." Despite his contractual obligations, Matthew called his agents every few days, pleading for a way to audition for Friends Like Us. He knew the show had the potential to be a massive success, with its relatable characters and witty dialogue. One day, his friend Craig Bierko shared that he had been offered roles in two projects, Best Friends and Friends Like Us, where he was up for the part of Chandler. Matthew, though desperately wanting the role himself, advised Craig to go for Friends. However, Craig chose Best Friends, leaving the door open for Matthew. This was a pivotal moment. Had Craig taken the role, Matthew's life might have taken a very different path. He later acknowledged that Craig's decision potentially saved him from a life on the streets. In 1994, NBC producer Jamie Tarsis learned from her husband, a Fox TV producer, that LAX 2194 was unlikely to succeed. She then inquired if Matthew could audition for Chandler, and the answer was yes. Matthew seized this opportunity. He arrived at the audition without a script, having memorized his lines, and impressed the creators with his natural embodiment of Chandler. He went on to ace 2 more auditions, securing the role that would catapult him to international fame. Just 3 weeks before the audition, Matthew had been reading an article about Charlie Sheen's latest troubles. He wondered why Sheen would worry about anything, being a world-famous actor. In a moment of desperation, Matthew knelt down and prayed for fame, even if it meant enduring hardship. His prayer was answered, but at a price. Years later, he reflected on this, saying, "You have to get famous to know that it's not the answer." Rise to fame. When the cast of Friends was finalized, they gathered for the first time to get acquainted. For Matthew, this meant meeting new people, except for Jennifer Aniston, whom he had met 3 years prior and instantly developed a crush on. He had even asked her out, but she declined, suggesting they be friends instead. Ironically, they were about to spend the next few years playing best friends on screen, with Matthew having to conceal his true feelings once again. Director Jimmy Burrows recognized the importance of real-life chemistry among the cast. Instead of a traditional table read, he took them to the set of Monica's apartment, encouraging them to connect and get to know each other better. They talked about their lives, dreams, and fears, fostering a sense of camaraderie. Courtney Cox, who played Monica, emphasized the importance of teamwork, stating, "There are no stars here. This is an ensemble show. We're all supposed to be friends." The cast took her words to heart. They became inseparable, eating together, playing poker, and spending time in each other's company. Matthew, always eager to please, used humor to bond with his castmates, much like his character Chandler. By the end of the first day, he felt a profound sense of happiness and belonging, something he had rarely experienced before. The following day, they had a table read in front of hundreds of people involved in the project. It was a success, and the excitement grew as everyone realized the show's potential for greatness. The filming process began, and the cast's friendship deepened. They were encouraged to contribute their own ideas, improvising lines and adding personal touches to their characters. Matthew revealed in a lunch meeting with the creators that he often felt awkward in silence and used humor to fill the void, just like Chandler. This insight shaped Chandler's character, making him the funniest of the friends, but also a bit of a romantic underdog. The actors were so in sync with their characters that they rarely flubbed their lines during the filming of the first season. By the summer of 1994, the first season was complete, but the show was still unknown to the public. The cast had a summer to themselves before the show's premiere. Matthew's summer was marked by 3 events: a fun-filled trip to Las Vegas with the cast, a relaxing getaway to Mexico where he indulged in drinking and socializing, and a brief fling with actress Gwyneth Paltrow, whom he met at the Williamstown Theater Festival in Massachusetts. Matthew and Gwyneth's summer romance was filled with swimming, beer at the local bar, and stolen kisses. They remained friends for a while, both cherishing the memories of that carefree time. Meanwhile, Friends Like Us was renamed Friends, and its premiere was strategically scheduled for Thursday at 8:30 p.m., nestled between 2 popular shows, Mad About You and Seinfeld. The premiere, on September 22, 1994, was a success, ranking 17th, which was impressive for a new show. Critics mostly praised the series, though there were a few negative reviews. But after a dozen episodes, Friends climbed into the top 10, then the top 5, and never looked back. In 1995, Friends won the People's Choice Award for Favorite New Television Comedy Series, solidifying its place in pop culture. Matthew, at 25, was finally experiencing the fame he had longed for. But was it all he had dreamed of? Years later, he would reflect on his success in an interview with The Guardian, saying, "I've been on the least watched show in the history of television and the most watched, and none of it really did what I thought it was going to do to my life." Behind the scenes, a remarkable act of generosity further cemented the bond between the cast. David Schwimmer, who initially earned more due to his prior acting experience, renegotiated his contract so that all 6 actors would receive equal pay per episode. This gesture fostered a sense of equality and camaraderie, eliminating any potential for jealousy or resentment. It's possible that this selfless act contributed to the show's enduring success and the genuine friendship among the cast. As Friends continued its meteoric rise, Matthew's life was about to take another dramatic turn. Fame and fortune were his, but the demons of addiction and loneliness still lurked beneath the surface. Unique relationship with star? The first season of Friends was a smashing success, prompting the immediate production of a second season. The episode, the one after the Super Bowl, aimed to attract big-name guest stars, including Julia Roberts. However, Julia had one condition. She wanted to be in Chandler's storyline, but only if Matthew could pique her interest. Matthew sent Julia 36 roses with a charming note, expressing his excitement about her potential appearance on the show. Julia responded with a playful challenge. Explain quantum physics to her in simple terms. Matthew, with the help of the Friends team, rose to the challenge, sending her a fax explaining the complex concept. Their exchange continued, with Julia sending more questions, and Matthew, aided by his friends, providing answers. This playful back and forth lasted for months, with Julia even sending Matthew bagels as a gesture of appreciation. Eventually, she sent a fax with a simple message, "Call me." Matthew nervously dialed her number, and to his surprise, they connected effortlessly, talking for 5.5 hours. Their phone relationship blossomed, but it wasn't long before Julia appeared on Matthew's doorstep, and their romance intensified. They became a couple before even filming their Friends episode together. Matthew met Julia's family and they celebrated New Year's Eve in the mountains of Mexico. However, Matthew's insecurities resurfaced. He felt unworthy of Julia's love and convinced himself that she would eventually leave him. In a preemptive move, he ended the relationship, a decision he would later regret deeply. After the second season of Friends wrapped, Matthew landed his first leading role in the romantic comedy Fools Rush In, opposite Salma Hayek. He earned his first $1 million paycheck, but the filming process presented challenges. The scenes were shot out of order, requiring him to evoke emotions like looking at a sonogram of his unborn child after only knowing Salma for a few days. Salma even suggested cuddling to help him connect with the emotions, but it didn't entirely work. In another scene, Matthew was repeatedly asked to cry, which he struggled to do on cue. After hours of trying, he was so exhausted and frustrated that he finally broke down in genuine tears, and the scene was completed. Despite the challenges, Matthew's comedic instincts shone through. He constantly suggested jokes to make scenes funnier, but director Andy Tennant assured him that he was interesting enough without them. Nevertheless, Andy did incorporate some of Matthew's ideas, including a line suggested by one of Matthew's friends, "You are everything I never knew that I always wanted." It became one of the most memorable lines in the film. However, Fools Rush In also marked the beginning of Matthew's descent into addiction. During a jet ski outing, he suffered a neck injury and was given a painkiller. The relief he felt from the pill was so intense that he immediately wanted more. He started taking the medication regularly. This marked the beginning of a long and painful battle with addiction that would continue for years, alternating between painkillers and alcohol. Battling with addictions. As the third season of Friends progressed, Matthew's weight loss became noticeable. He later revealed that his weight fluctuated depending on his addiction. Carrying weight meant alcohol, while being skinny meant pills. He had lost his appetite and was consumed by the need to obtain more painkillers. His daily dose had reached 55 pills, and withdrawal caused severe illness. Matthew resorted to desperate measures to get his fix. He lied to doctors about migraines, searched friends' bathrooms for pills, scoured open houses for medication, and even turned to dealers. Despite his struggles, Matthew continued to work. After the success of Fools Rush In, he starred in the comedy Almost Heroes with Chris Farley. Both actors battled addiction, and the film was barely completed. Matthew was constantly sick and losing weight due to his pill use and lack of nourishment. Tragically, Chris Farley died of an overdose before the film's release, leaving Matthew to promote it alone, all while hiding his own addiction from the public. Matthew's condition worsened. He couldn't stop using and was eventually admitted to a rehab center in Minnesota after confessing to his doctor. Detoxification was difficult, and he suffered a seizure, but he eventually recovered, gaining weight and overcoming his painkiller dependence. The fourth season of Friends was his best yet, as he felt healthier and looked better. But his sobriety was short-lived. Only 68 days after leaving rehab, he relapsed into alcoholism, a habit that would continue until 2001. During this time, he filmed the romantic comedy Three to Tango and fell for his co-star Neve Campbell. As was often the case, she chose someone else, and Matthew turned to alcohol to numb the pain. Three to Tango flopped at the box office, and critics panned it. At 30, Matthew was hospitalized with pancreatitis due to excessive alcohol consumption. His girlfriend, Jamie Tarsis, stayed by his side. He was prescribed strong painkillers, and his addiction spiraled out of control once again. Even after temporarily moving in with his father, Matthew continued using. He nearly caused a car accident, crashing into his father's house while driving under the influence. The incident made headlines, forcing him to move out, but he couldn't escape his addiction. During the filming of the 5th season of Friends, Jennifer Aniston confronted Matthew about his drinking. Shocked that his secret was out, he promised to stop, but replaced pills with others to manage his withdrawal. In between seasons, he starred in the crime comedy The Whole Nine Yards with Bruce Willis. The filming, which took place in Montreal, was a wild experience, with parties fueled by Willis that often lasted all night. To cope with the hectic schedule, Matthew started using a strong sedative despite its dangerous interaction with alcohol. Despite his struggles, The Whole Nine Yards was a box office hit. Matthew and Bruce had made a bet. If the movie succeeded, Bruce would guest star on Friends for free. Bruce kept his word, appearing in the 6th season and even winning an Emmy for his performance. However, the sequel, The Whole 10 Yards, was a critical and commercial failure. Matthew's friendship with Bruce fizzled out, and he returned to the set of Friends, his addiction worsening. Concerned for his well-being, the cast and crew hired someone to monitor his sobriety. But Matthew's addiction was too strong, and he fled to film the romantic comedy Serving Sarah. His condition deteriorated, and he was forced to leave the film, paying a hefty fine and entering another rehab center in Los Angeles. After a month of detox, he was transferred to another facility in Malibu for a 3-month program. There, he finally began to understand the depths of his addiction and its root causes. "I was living in rehab when Monica and Chandler got married," Matthew later recalled. He also watched the Academy Awards from rehab, where Julia Roberts, the woman he still regretted losing, won an Oscar. Matthew's romantic life continued to be turbulent, with a string of short-lived relationships, but none of these flings could fill the void within him. After 3 months in rehab, Matthew emerged sober, having ended his relationship with Jamie Tarsis. He was ready to return to work, but his journey to recovery was far from over. Career beyond Friends. The final season of Friends was filled with mixed emotions for everyone involved. While audiences adored the show, the actors were starting to feel the weight of their iconic roles. Jennifer Aniston, eager to pursue a film career, urged the producers to shorten the final season. In the last episode, as the characters said goodbye to their familiar lives, it was Matthew who delivered the final line. He had requested this from the show's creators, but when the filming ended and the cast was in tears, Matthew felt nothing. He later questioned whether this emotional detachment was due to his pill use or a deeper numbness within him. Despite the end of an era, Matthew looked ahead with optimism. He had a sequel to The Whole Nine Yards in the works, and had earned 2 Emmy nominations for his roles in Ally McBeal and The West Wing. In 2006, he starred in the critically acclaimed drama The Ron Clark Story, earning nominations for a Screen Actors Guild Award, a Golden Globe, and an Emmy. During the filming of The Ron Clark Story, Matthew was offered a role in the drama series Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. He liked the script, but the salary was significantly less than what he had been earning on Friends. After negotiations, his salary was raised, and his friend Amanda Peet, who had starred alongside him in The Whole Nine Yards and its sequel, was also cast in the show. However, the atmosphere on Studio 60 Inches was different from Friends. The show's creator, Aaron Sorkin, didn't allow for improvisation, and Matthew's creative input was largely ignored. Despite initial positive reviews, the show struggled with ratings and was canceled after 1 season. Amid career ups and downs, Matthew's personal life saw some stability. His relationship with Lizzie Kaplan, whom he had been dating since 2006, was growing serious. On one Christmas, he gave her a heartfelt gift, a painting depicting them writing to each other, surrounded by 1,780 hearts, representing the messages they had exchanged. Matthew even considered proposing that day, but his Chandler-like sarcasm got in the way, ruining the moment. Their relationship continued for 6 years before ultimately ending. Matthew later expressed regret, wondering what might have been if he had proposed. Throughout this period, Matthew continued acting, starring in films like Numb and Birds of America. He was even rumored to have had a fling with Lauren Graham, his co-star in Birds of America, but he never confirmed it. In 2009, he appeared in the hit teen comedy 17 Again, playing the older version of Zac Efron's character. Despite mixed reviews, the film was a box office success. In 2011, Matthew created and starred in his own sitcom, Mr. Sunshine. It was a short-lived comedy about quirky characters working at a sports arena, and while it didn't find a large audience, it gave Matthew valuable experience in creating a television show from scratch. The following year, he starred in another series, Go On, about a sports radio host coping with his wife's death. Despite a promising start, it was also canceled after one season due to low ratings. Between these projects, Matthew continued to struggle with addiction, returning to rehab multiple times. While these stints provided temporary relief, they didn't address the root of his problems. In 2001, during a rehab stay, Matthew met Earl, who became his sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous. Together, they worked through the program's steps. When Earl founded a sober living home company, Matthew invested $500,000 and turned his Malibu house into a sober living facility called Perry House. Matthew and Earl even traveled to Washington, D.C. to advocate for drug courts, which offered treatment instead of incarceration for nonviolent offenders. In 2013, Matthew received the Champion of Recovery Award from the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. He planned to discuss these issues on an episode of Piers Morgan Live, where he would host and interview Lisa Kudrow. However, Earl, who was originally scheduled to be the guest, couldn't make it. Despite their efforts, Matthew and Earl's venture into sober living homes and drug court advocacy in Europe didn't pan out. Matthew had to sell his Malibu house, and Earl disappeared with his investment, leaving Matthew feeling betrayed and desperate. This setback triggered a relapse, plunging him back into the depths of addiction. The final curtain. After Go On was canceled, Matthew spiraled into depression, returning to substance abuse and feeling increasingly disillusioned with life. He sought a change of pace with the sitcom The Odd Couple, starring alongside Thomas Lennon. While the show had promise, Matthew's depression and addiction hindered his performance. He was often late, under the influence, and ultimately didn't contribute much to the show's success. Despite this, the sitcom ran for 3 seasons. To cope with his inner turmoil, Matthew turned to writing. He penned the play The End of Longing in just 10 days, though it took a year to refine it. The play, set in a downtown Los Angeles bar, centered on 4 characters over 40 searching for meaning in their lives. Matthew played the lead role of Jack, an alcoholic, drawing inspiration from his own struggles. The play received mixed reviews, with some critics finding it disjointed and resembling a miniseries. Others praised Matthew's writing debut and his willingness to confront his demons on stage. He even invited his ex-girlfriend, Lizzie Kaplan, to see the play, but she declined, later revealing in an email that she was getting married. Matthew was hurt by her abrupt announcement, and they haven't spoken since. In 2017, Matthew returned to television with roles in The Good Fight and The Kennedys after Camelot. He embraced the challenge of playing Ted Kennedy, seeking to elevate his performance beyond his previous work. However, in July 2019, Matthew faced another health crisis. He underwent emergency surgery for a perforated bowel, a potential consequence of painkiller abuse. His chances of survival were slim, and he spent 5 months in the hospital, including 2 weeks in a coma. Over the years, he had endured 14 stomach surgeries, serving as constant reminders of his struggles with addiction. During his recovery, Matthew's girlfriend, literary manager Molly Hurwitz, supported him. They had started dating in 2018 and became engaged a year later, but the engagement was broken off after 6 months. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, Matthew experienced another near-death experience while in rehab in Switzerland. A surgical procedure involving propofol stopped his heart for 5 minutes, and he suffered 8 broken ribs during resuscitation. By the time the Friends reunion special aired in May 2021, Matthew's appearance shocked many viewers. Years of battling addiction had taken a toll on him. During the reunion, he opened up about the emotional challenges he faced during the show's run. In 2022, he published his memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, offering a candid look at his life, career, and struggles with addiction. The book was met with critical acclaim and resonated with readers who appreciated his honesty and vulnerability. He revealed that he wrote the book to offer hope to those facing similar challenges. Matthew emphasized that addiction is a disease that can be overcome with the right support and treatment. He shared his own experiences of witnessing people recover and finding hope. Tragically, on October 28, 2023, Matthew was found dead in his Los Angeles home. The cause of death was later determined to be an accidental ketamine overdose, with drowning and heart disease as contributing factors. The news of his passing shocked the world.
Breaking news, Matthew Perry has died.
He was found unresponsive in his hot tub by his assistant.
We have new details on his shocking death.
Fans and his co-stars are shocked and deeply saddened by the actor's death.
Felt like I was gonna die if they didn't laugh. And it's not healthy, for sure.
If I didn't get the laugh I was supposed to get, I would freak out.
If I did die, it would shock people, but it wouldn't surprise anybody.
And tributes poured in from fans, friends, and colleagues. His family expressed their heartbreak and gratitude for the outpouring of love, while his friends' co-stars mourned the loss of their beloved friend and colleague. Matthew Perry's life was a complex tapestry of talent, humor, struggles, and resilience. While his battle with addiction ultimately claimed his life, his legacy as a beloved actor and advocate for recovery will continue to inspire and touch the lives of many.